weekend, I've had an extensive conversation with our treasurer. We all know the health crisis that we're experiencing with the pandemic, and our public health staff are doing the best they possibly can and do an exemplary job. But I think it's also important for us to keep an eye on our finances. We all are very much aware of the negative economic impacts that our economies have been experiencing. And I just turn you to page 33 and the report, which Mr. Dyer and his team put together over the weekend, giving us a high-level overview of our revenue are across a couple of different areas. I think it's important to recognize that public transit, just a few examples, public transit revenues down, waste management, airport, POA, of course, red light camera revenue and offenses from the POA court. And then on top of that, we've had increased costs due to increased staffing for public health, which is very much warranted, staffing for paramedics, and increased money to support people that are homeless. So there's been a lot of work done categorizing all the different areas where we have revenue risk and increased. Also, citizen service for call centers is a lot more calls than normally. I think it's also important to point out that staff and the treasurer is in constant contact with all the other treasurers from our local municipalities, is also on a working group with the regional treasurers, and like the federal and provincial governments who are keeping a keen eye on economic activity and impacts of COVID-19, are doing the same. And I think that it's important to recognize that we're monitoring it. We haven't been able to establish what the financial impacts are going to be, but nonetheless, I think it's fair to say that they will be significant, and they will be likely the most significant financial impacts that we've experienced as a regional government. And if you look at the report as you get through to near the end, we are looking at ways in which we can monitor our finances, of course, and mitigate any losses, but also recognize we need to provide support to our communities. And on the report, which is number D, this report is going toward all municipalities in terms of waiving late fees, NSF bank charges, etc., on all regional accounts. The water, wastewater, waste management, childcare, and so on. And the local municipalities are doing the same to provide some relief for people who are experiencing economic hardship. The regional treasurers and the municipal treasurers are also looking at possible measures forward with respect to tax deferrals. Other municipalities have looked at that. We're not there yet. We are examining that. Thing to point out, which was going to be a very unusual scenario. The biases of all this, staff are anticipating that we will likely run a deficit, which will be the first time in the history of the region. There are measures or there are regulations in place to govern municipalities when they run a deficit and how we have to pay back those deficits. I won't get into the details of those. But the province is very much aware of the financial challenges that municipalities are facing, and they are in constant contact with our treasurers and our staff to help monitor the situation, put the necessary tools that are required, if those tools don't already exist, for us to deal with what will likely be a deficit at the end of 2020. So I don't want to be alarmist about all of this. I think that our staff is monitoring it quite nicely. I think it's also important for our government. You'll notice there's a bunch of tender approvals on here. It's also important for us to stay the course as much as we possibly can with our capital investments, because it keeps the economy moving, and we do need to maintain a minimal amount of activity as we go through this crisis and position ourselves for beyond. So I just like to thank staff for the work that they're doing here, and And in the subsequent days and weeks, they'll continue to monitor it. And I anticipate in the next couple of weeks, we'll probably have an order of magnitude with respect to what these financial implications are to real dollars. So, Chair, those are my comments with respect to those 2 points.
Okay, I don't know if you're on a speaker phone, Councillor Strickland, but you sounded like you're in the bottom of the fish tank, so I think we got most of that. Thank you for those comments. Mr. Dyer, do you want to make any comments? I have a few questions, but do you want to speak to this at all? Craig, are you on the line? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Craig, you're on. Do you want to make any comments?
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Wonderful. So I would just say, I think Councillor Strickland provided a good overview of the report. I would say that staff are already turning their minds to the next report and the work that we need to do in the very near future in order to provide a further update to Council. So we'll be having conversations with Mr. Murray and the department heads this week that will lead us to doing, I think, a fairly detailed analysis based on financial results for the first quarter, and the first quarter ends next week. And then turning our minds to trying to make some projections of some of these more significant items at the year end. It's going to be, as I said in the report, it's a speculative exercise right now because it is a bit hard to know exactly how this is going to play out. But we're going to do our best to make some assumptions and try to put some order of magnitude to the items that we've identified in the report. And we hope to bring then something back to committee or council in April.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dyer. Councillor Jaworski, you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I have a question of clarity, probably for the CFO, and I may have missed it in Councillor Strickland's comments. As you know, the lower tiers collect taxes on our behalf, and lower tiers are making decisions based on tax or economic relief efforts. One of the things that the lower tiers have to do is then transfer money on a regular basis, I believe it monthly, to the region and to the province. So I'm just wondering, what clarity might we be able to give to the lower tiers in terms of what collection options they have in terms of, or what deferral of payments to the region options that they have?
Mr. Dyer?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd say a couple of things. First, we're working, regional finance staff are working very closely with all 7 area municipal treasurers. And I think, you know, the various reports that are coming forward around the 2-month, waiving of interest and penalties as a consistent package across the region is a testament to that. We'll be continuing our conversations this week, and I think our next step is then to look at, you know, what are the implications from a cash flow perspective of the waiving of the interest and penalties for the next 2 months, and what any further actions might look like. So, I can't give you a specific answer right now, other than the commitment to work with the area municipalities to come up with something that's going to work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vrbanovic.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. I just wanted to actually reiterate that point. We approved our financial and economic relief plan last night at Council, and it's consistent with what's been talked about. But I would, reiterate Councillor Jaworski's point. I know that, typically we would normally once a month flow 1/12 of the monies owing to the region, and quarterly to the school boards on behalf of the province. I know on today's LUMCO call, this issue was raised with the minister in terms of the cash flow part to the school boards. And I'm glad to hear that we'll work with the lower tier municipalities to try to assist in that regard. obviously depending on the level of uptake on this by residents, it could create some challenges, and so we'll need the support of the region on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Galloway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. The first is, Craig, when are we expecting that report? Is there a date by which we will kind of have the opportunity to approve a relief package? I'm speaking specifically now on the tax deferrals and deferrals of penalties and so on. And the second issue is, will the report give us an update on the balance of the tax stabilization fund and the opportunity to use it as it's intended for these kind of rainy days in order to not have a deficit or to deal with a deficit immediately after the end of the fiscal year?
Yep. So through you, Madam Chair. Yep. Through you, Madam Chair. If I can answer the answer to the most recent question, the last question around the tax stabilization reserve, is we have $15 million in that reserve. And so that's one of the, tools, for lack of a better term, that we would look at in the event of a deficit in 2020. I think going back to the first question, I don't have a specific date for the report just yet. Thinking ahead, depending on the meeting schedule, something to either committee, the next regularly scheduled committee and council meeting is generally what we're targeting. That being said, we should keep in mind that the decisions around delaying the billing of taxes and the imposition of penalties and interest on taxes, that's a function that does happen at the local municipal level. So our role in this is going to be to work with the area municipalities to determine, what changes to the timing of payment might be in order, and what the region's role would be in that relative to the payments that are made by the local municipalities to the region. So I don't think our report, I think, is going to be less of a let's call it an economic relief package, as it is an overall update on the status of the impact, the financial impacts on the region as a result of the pandemic.
Councillor Galloway.
Sorry.
Councillor Galloway, do you have more questions?
Well, I just wanted to pursue that a little bit, though. We do have people who have to pay daycare expenses and housing expenses, and we do have services where people are paying the region. It's not a lower tier service. Will we be having policies in regards to late payments and so on?
Yep. So the measures that are included in the report today provide for a waiving of interest and penalties for 2 months. One of the options will be to consider whether an extension of that is required. Of course, with our childcare centers closed right now, there are no payments being made, no billing being done. But we will certainly look at the various areas where we have user fees and charges, and whether any further policy adjustments would be in order.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Galloway. Councillor Kiefer. We're opening your mic. It's just, give us a second. Okay, go ahead, Carl.
My questions have been answered, Chair Redmond. Thank you.
Okay. I want to reflect. I'm fully in support of this relief. I think it's a real testament on so many levels that the region continues to work to find collaborative solutions for everybody in the region with local municipalities. But at budget time, I'm going to, and it will be an unusual budget, no doubt, remind council colleagues that, often at budget time, one of the ways that we keep the increase down is by not cutting back how much we put in our reserve funds, this is a rainy day, and that's exactly what these funds are for. So I have comfort that we have $15 million in the tax stabilization fund, but that's been built up over a number of years of prudent planning. So I want to thank Mr. Dyer and also his colleagues for making sure that we have good fiscal practices. So I'm just going to go back before we take the vote and say, so we are now going to vote on all of the finance reports. The first one is a recommendation for a tender for engineered concrete for Manser Road at Boomer Creek Bridge. The second one is the Sararas house restoration at Doon Heritage Village Seiling Museum. The third one is actions for Weber Street North reconstruction, Forwell Creek Road to Blythwood and Dutton Drive and Parkside. And the last is the one that we've done the most talking about, and that is the relief measures during this exceptional period to provide relief.
So, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So somebody who's talking needs to go on.
Harris. I think it's Councillor Harris.
Okay.
Are you hearing me? It's Sandy.
Yes, we are.
Okay, sorry. I can put you on mute on my phone. Sorry about that. I'm still not getting the *9 or *6 from this end, but I'll use my phone mute.
You should put in for a new phone, Councillor Sean.
I have my IT guy right here.
Okay. All right, so are we going to do a roll hand? Okay, so everyone who is in favor, please press *9, except Councillor Sean, who will take a voice vote.
McGarry, Harris.
So Johnson Harris. Okay, John and Councillor Sean.
Councillor Sean? Yes.
Are you in favor?
Yes. Do you want me to call in again? Would that be helpful?
Probably not. So I don't want to lose you at this stage, so I think it's better if I just ask you.
Okie dokie.
And Councillor Harris, are you here? No, Councillor Harris, so that's 15 in favor.
And I'm in, well, I don't get to vote. Okay, so that is carried. Thank you, Councillor colleagues. So we now are going to move to the consent agenda. And if you want to remove an item from the consent agenda, please indicate so now. So press *9 if you want something removed. We will not take questions on consent agenda items unless they have been requested to be removed to the regular agenda. The consent agenda will be dealt with in one motion. And if there are any items you wish to have removed, now is when you press *9. Seeing none, this is moved by Councillor Nowak and seconded by Councillor Shantz. You have them written before you. There are several. So, seeing none, it's been moved and seconded, and we are going to do a show of hands or roll call, Chris?
Oh, show of hands.
We're going to do a show of hands. So everyone is in favor of the consent agenda, please press *9.
We lost somebody and gained somebody. People just shifted around.
So Councillor Shantz?
In favor.
Thank you.
So who's missing still? Councillor Harris? So that's 15 in favor.
15 in favor. Thank you, colleagues. That is passed. We're now going to move to the regular agenda items. Each item has a recommendation. I will read the report number and ask if there are any questions before calling the vote. So the first is future alternative service delivery for transit in Waterloo region. Are there any questions on this report? It is PSTRP-20-06. This is moved by Councillor Galloway and seconded by Councillor Vrbanovic. This is to continue the work in conjunction with Trinity Village Long-Term Care and the City of Kitchener to improve existing pedestrian connection with Connaught Street and Traynor Ave. Recommending that Route 27 in Chicopee be rerouted in order to provide direct on-site service to Grand River, Freeport campus, and recommendation that Route 901 Flex Trinity Freeport continue to operate until Route 27 Chicopee is rerouted. At that point, it would be discontinued. And a recommendation that the Planning and Works Committee receive for information the details of the alternative service delivery pilot in partnership with Metrolink. That report's dated March 24th, 2020. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. Councillor Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, sounds better.
Okay, great. Thank you. Not the greatest cell phone coverage up here in Northwest Waterloo, by the way. So sorry about that. I'm just wondering, these are unusual circumstances. Obviously, this is our first virtual meeting. I'm wondering if you would rule it in order if I move the remainder of the agenda, and if anyone wanted to take something separately, that they could indicate that and we can deal with it separately.
Sorry? You know what? The public are tuning into this open session, Sean, which is the one reason why I would say I'd still like to go through, and even the recommendations before us, I would have to tell you, this is a significant response to community concerns when we look at Connaught and Traynor Ave for Trinity Village, and we look at the access to Freeport. So I appreciate your desire to be expeditious, but I think at this point in time, I'd like to go through the open agenda. If people have no questions, it should go fairly quickly.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Galloway.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank staff on working on these various GRT flex routes. I met with the administrator of Trinity Village along with their planner, and they really are looking forward to those improvements at the rear of their property that would connect them to a regular route. I also really like the solution that staff have come up with at Grand River Hospital Freeport site, taking the bus right onto the property, doing a turnaround, and that's going to be a welcome change to a lot of elderly people who visit that particular facility, but also dialysis patients and others who regularly go there, and they won't have to do the long trek up the hill and the driveway from King Street. So I think this is a real positive move, and I really want to support it too.
Thank you very much, and I would absolutely concur with you. Thank you for your hard work with staff and with the community, Councillor Galloway. I think these are significant recognitions that we have responded to their concerns. Councillor Foxton.
I was just going to reiterate that I'm really appreciative of this, and just ditto to both what you and Tom said. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know you too have had a personal interest in lobbied on behalf of the public. I'm just going to look to the clerk for a minute. Is B part of this too?
No.
Okay.
We're on the regular agenda, so we're doing these item by item now.
Okay, so we're on the regular agenda, so it's the 4 recommendations as I've outlined. It has been moved and seconded. Could you please hit *9 if you are in favor? That is carried. Councillor Shantz, are you in favor?
I'm in favor, and I also wanted to thank Transit staff and the committee for looking at some different ways to provide transportation.
Thank you very much.
Mike Harris was out. 15.
Hanging out there.
No, that's this one.
Okay. The next item is a transit project, easement interest in favor of Waterloo North Hydro pertaining to 518 Dutton Drive. Are there any questions for this? This is moved by Councillor Galloway and seconded by Councillor Erb. Just scrolling down. I see no hands. Has anyone got a question? The recommendation is to declare an easement interest in lands legally described as Part Lot 11, German tract of Township of Waterloo, subject to satisfaction of the requirements pursuant to the region's property disposal bylaw, and direct regional solicitor to approve, enter into an agreement for, and execute all documentation related to the said conveyance in terms satisfactory to the regional solicitor, and that the regional solicitor has all necessary authority to execute all such documents thereto. I see no questions. Could people hit *9 if they are in favor of this recommendation?
Councillor Sean?
In favor.
Thank you. That is carried. The next agenda item is the Brownfield Financial Incentive Program Tax Increment Grant Application, 498 Eagle Street North, Cambridge. Are there any questions on this report? It is moved by Councillor Strickland and seconded by Councillor Galloway. So this says the region of Waterloo will take the following actions for the property known as 498 Eagle Street North in the city of Cambridge. Conditional on the lands not being covered, approved joint tax increment grant. It's conditional on the lands not being severed and authorizing the Commissioner of Planning, Development and Legal Services to execute these agreements. I see no speakers. All those in favor, please push or hit *9.
Councillor Sean?
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I'm missing the body language, but just to note that Councillor Keeper should have really moved this, and I'm in favor.
Okay.
Councillor Erb, are you on? Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. That is passed. The next agenda item, D on your list, is proposed regulatory changes under the Aggregate Resources Act. Are there any questions? This is moved by Councillor Foxton and seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Foxton?
Thank you. If Rod is on the line, Rod, if we could touch base sometime this week, I think there's 1 or 2 points that you may be missing that I went through the ministry with, so if we can touch point sometime, I'd appreciate that.
Mr. Regier, do you want to respond?
Yes, that would be fine. Let's circle around after the meeting.
Okay. Oh, I have other speakers. Councillor Jowett.
I don't know why. I'm not looking to.
Okay. Councillor Jaworski.
Not me.
Councillor Nowak.
Not me. But I'm getting a lot of static on the phone here. I'm not sure why.
Well, thank you all for hanging in. I know this is a work in progress. So, Mr. Regier, I'm assuming that you've already spoken. Do you want to speak again?
No, but I'll certainly, we're happy to have a chat with Councillor Foxton regarding the report, and we can follow up afterwards.
Thank you very much. Okay, again, please press *9 if you're in favor. Maybe that's what people were doing. Maybe you were premature voting.
Councillor Sean?
Yes, thank you. We're in favor, but a question for staff. You've incorporated the comments from the lower tiers on this one?
So, Mr. Regier, is that back to you?
Yeah, I'll defer to Michelle Sergi, our Director of Community Planning, on that one. My understanding is that we have. I'm not familiar with the specific consultations that we've had.
Thank you. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, it's Michelle here. My understanding is that we did work with area municipal staff in terms of developing the comments. The report was circulated.
Okay, and was there mostly agreement? I'm assuming there was.
So as far as I'm aware, there was, but I can always circle back and touch base with staff in Woolwich to confirm for you.
Thank you. I'm in favor.
Thank you. So that vote is carried. Thank you, colleagues. The next agenda item is Community Environment Grant Funds. This is moved by Councillor Galloway, seconded by Councillor Clarke. The recommendation is that the Regional Municipality of Waterloo approve project funding allocations totaling up to $119,401.58 from the Community Environment. I just about gave that a big bump, didn't I? Community Environment Fund to support 19 environmental stewardship and sustainable projects as described in Attachment 1 of Report TDL-CPL-20-8 dated March 24th, 2020. I see no speakers. I would just indicate that I think this is a really valuable program, and I know something that Council definitely supports, and it fits in really well with our strategic plan. So everybody in favor, press *9.
Councillor Sean?
In favor.
So that
Councillor Harris still not here? Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. And agenda item F, Community Benefits Authority Draft Regulation. This is moved by Councillor Jowett, seconded by Councillor Foxton. That the Municipality of Waterloo endorse and submit to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing the input and recommendations on the proposed regulatory matters pertaining to Community Benefits Authority under the Planning Act, the Development Charges Act, the Building Code Act, as set out report KOR-FSD-20-07 dated March 24th, 2020. It's been moved and seconded. I see no speakers. So I'd ask that you press *9 if you are in favor of this recommendation.
Councillor Jowett, are you here? Thank you. Councillor Sean?
In favor.
Thank you. Michael Harris not available.
The next agenda item is the periodic financial report of the year ended December 31st, 2019. This is moved by Councillor Strickland and seconded by Councillor Erb. The recommendation is that the Region of Waterloo take the following actions with respect to the periodic financial report for the year ended December 31st, 2019, as set out in Report COR-FSD 20-6 dated March 24th, 2020. Under that subsection, there are two further clarifications to improve the preliminary 2019 financial results for the purposes of preparing the region's 2019 audited financial statements. And number 2, apply the surplus allocation policy to the 2019 financial results. I see no speakers. Everyone in favor, please press star 9.
Councillor Sean?
In favor.
Thank you. That is carried, colleagues.
Is Strickland in the queue or not?
Sean, are you still on the line?
We need to change it over.
Okay. We're going to back up and change. Councillor Strickland is not on the line. And this is moved by Councillor Jowett and seconded by Councillor Erb. We still have your vote, so that's all good. Item H is the 2020 tax ratios and tax policy. This is moved by Councillor Jowett and seconded by Councillor Kiefer. You have it before you. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, please press star 9 if you're in favor.
Sean's still not in, because we'll have to change the
Okay, Sean is in the waiting room coming back in.
Councillor Harris? Councillor Sean?
In favor.
Thank you, colleagues. That is carried. Next agenda item I is Regional Council Composition Review Process. This is moved by Councillor Strickland, seconded by Councillor Rentz. And the recommendation is that the Regional Municipality of Waterloo direct the regional clerk to complete the required council composition review using in-house resources and the assistance of a consultant with a cap of $50,000 for expenditures as outlined in report PDL-CAS-20-03 dated March 24th, 2020. And colleagues, this is a question I have posed directly to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. We don't know if anything is going to change in this current timeline. So this recommendation is that we go forward with this process at this point in time. They are aware of it. Given the COVID-19 and how it's distracting everyone, nobody has really turned their mind to this, but it is a legislative requirement. And I see Councillor Kiefer, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm referring to the Appendix A of that report, where it shows the different communities. And under North Dumfries, it shows that the township has 1 councillor. I thought they had 4 councillors.
This is the composition of regional. No, okay, hang on. Chris is going to respond.
He's right. He's right.
He's right. So there's an error, and we'll fix that on the table.
Good catch, Councillor Kiefer.
Well, Sue Foxton knows me.
You two will have to take that offline.
There you go.
Okay, thank you for catching that. I see no other speakers. Please press star 9. those in
Councillor Sean?
In favor.
Thank you, colleagues. That is carried.
Not me to do pandemic.
Yeah. So we're now going to ask Mike Murray to give an update on COVID-19 and the pandemic and all of the things that the region has been doing.
Yeah, so I'll actually be pretty brief because I think councillors have a pretty good picture of the things that the region's been working on related to the pandemic response. I would ask Dr. Wang to just give kind of an overview of, information that she made available yesterday and today. So Hsu-Li can give an update from a public health perspective of things that are going on. And then I might just have a couple other comments about sort of the business cycle that we're in and the media and communication cycle that we're in. And then
Sure.
happy to take questions from any councillors about any pandemic-related response issues that are appropriate for open session. But I'll turn it over to Dr. Wang.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, councillors. We're starting to see the expected rise in cases that other areas in Canada and Ontario have seen. As of 11:30 a.m. yesterday, we had 32 cases, 17 of which were confirmed, 15 which were presumptive, and presumptive means they are very likely to be positive cases. 9 out of the 32 were hospitalized. The total number we had tested in Waterloo region is 984. Of that number, 565 had been confirmed negative. We are awaiting test results for 402 people, and 434 individuals are being monitored by public health. We will have updated numbers next tomorrow morning at 10:30, followed by another press briefing at 11:30. So as you can see, we have entered the steeper part of the curve in terms of growing numbers of cases. I expect that we will be on this steeper curve for the near future. Our hospitals continue to prepare. They are working in order to scale down activities such as elective surgeries, and Ontario Health West is directing their work and the work of other health system partners to move patients who should be in less acute settings out of the hospital and into those settings to increase hospital capacity. The federal and provincial governments are working to increase the availability of important medical supplies and equipment for healthcare settings and hospitals, such as masks and ventilators. Finally, primary care partners are working with the hospitals to set up a couple of additional assessment centers in the community, in addition to the 3 clinics which have already opened in our area hospitals. This will increase our community's capacity to assess persons who do not need to be seen in the emergency departments, but require in-person medical assessment to complement the virtual assessments that are being done by clinicians in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. I'm just going to ask Mike Murray to jump in, and then we'll open it up for questions from council.
Yeah, so really just a couple of brief things. It's been a very, very busy and intense couple weeks, and I think we're now starting to settle into more of a routine in terms of communication. The business cycle that we're settling into is doing a regional media update Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11:30 each day. And that typically involves an update from Dr. Wang, an update from Chair Redmond, and an update from me. That seems to be working well. Good response from our media partners. I think, it's become a good mechanism to push information, good, timely, current information out to the public. As I've said a couple times to councillors, we'll endeavor to get you all that information probably just in advance of it going out to the public, and in between those Monday, Wednesday, Friday briefings, if there are other significant things that emerge, we'll continue to keep you updated via email updates as we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. So I think the whole team is on the phone, and so I think are available to answer questions if you have questions for Dr. Wang, for myself, or any other members of the leadership team.
Thank you very much. I see a queue starting, and we'll start with Councillor Galloway.
Well, thanks, Madam Chair. I just want to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Wang and Mr. Murray and the entire task force for the tremendous, outstanding job that they're doing. It's really important in a time like this that the community feels confident, and the people I talk to are really sensing that sense of confidence that we do really have good leadership on this particular issue, and the resources are being put to it. So I want to commend all the staff, our staff, the staff at the local level, staff in other agencies and utilities that are really putting their shoulder into this. And at the end of the day, we know that it's going to be for the better. What I would like to note is that and encourage the task force, and indeed maybe more specifically encourage the media that are listening in on this to really push the various measures that people need to do. I think we're all still seeing some apathy towards the social distancing. I think most people are into it, but there's still an element of our community that doesn't seem to be engaged in that. So anything that the media can do, anything that we can do at our level or at the task force level, I think would be money well spent or effort well spent. So again, thanks everyone for the tremendous job that's being done.
Thank you, Tom. I think we all echo those comments. It's an amazing team. Councillor Strickland. Sean?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I certainly echo the chair's endorsement of Councillor Galloway's comments, and thanks to the entire regional team and everyone who's been involved with this these Herculean efforts, and we still have a lot of work ahead of us for sure. And special thanks to Dr. Wang and the healthcare team. I'm wondering for Dr. Wang, just in terms of flattening the curve, and I know we don't have the benefit of a screen on this call as we're ramping up our technology for this, but just in terms of the epidemiology and the number of cases that we're expecting, can you shed any light on what the models are saying about what the number of cases that we could likely expect in Ontario and in Waterloo region, given where we are today?
Dr. Wang?
I have a couple follow-ups after that.
Okay. Yes, I can provide that information in a little while. I don't have it right with me, but I can tell you that we have been using modeling methodologies being used by provincial experts to try to model that information for our community. It's very rough at this point in time because it's sort of just beginning here for Ontario in terms of the cases increasing. But I can tell you that the hospitals are also using that modeling information for, hospital preparedness. And we do know the evidence that it's coming out more and more is showing that social distancing is highly effective. And so really it's going to be our primary tool. Our objective will be to continue to update our modeling as we get more information about the evolution of cases in Ontario and Waterloo. And this should help us answer the question of whether, in terms of our preparedness, we will, should be doing anything different or adjusting anything. But right now, what we've put in place in terms of measures it is going to have a positive impact. We just don't know exactly to what extent or when we'll start to see that. We'll need to monitor every week. And so, I'll gladly provide some more updated modeling information. We're just waiting for some additional information from the ministry actually this week to be able to refine those numbers because right now they're very rough. But I will have that shortly for you.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. Sean?
Yeah, thank you. Just a follow-up to that, Dr. Wang, because I think, and you connected the dots quite nicely there, because I think it's really important to show people that, here's the worst case scenario, here's the best case scenario, whatever the medical terminology is, to really emphasize the importance of putting into place the social distancing, the isolation, the self-isolation, the fact that if you've returned from abroad and you need to self-isolate for 14 days, because I don't think people are really connecting the dots and, and saying, okay, I need to do this because I'm going to help avoid this kind of, cascading effect on the number of cases. So I think it's really important, even though it is rough numbers, I think it's important to paint that picture so people, most are taking it seriously, but some aren't. And so we just really need to get that message out there a little bit more clearly. So I thank you for that. And the other question I have is, as we all know, the provincial government declared essential and non-essential workers last evening. And I'm wondering, we need to have some people still working for supply chain and groceries and medications, all those kinds of things that are really critical. I'm just wondering, when are we going to see some public health guidelines for COVID-19 containment for those workers, transit workers, etc., who are deemed essential and have to continue to work? How are we protecting those people?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Strickland. So there's already been guidance in general released for workplaces, and they're based on the general principles of trying to enable social distancing and ensuring good, regular environmental cleaning. But there have been questions like yours, Councillor Strickland, if there's more that needs to be done. And so that is a question that is actively being discussed at the provincial levels, especially now that we have this provincial expansion of what needs to close and what can stay opened. And so we understand that that is the guidance that should be forthcoming soon from the province. In the meantime, I recommend that workplaces continue to follow the guidance that has been out there in general for workplaces, which, talk mostly about social distancing and about environmental cleaning and making sure that employees who are ill don't work.
Councillor Strickland, any more questions?
No, thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Councillor Clarke.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate the effort that everybody at the region is putting into this. I know staff are working flat out. I wanted to talk specifically about the work that's being done by the staff in our housing department. Last night, councillors received a letter from some members of the community who are, to their credit, concerned about the plight of our most vulnerable residents, people who are homeless. And I was discouraged to see the sense in the letter that nothing's being done. And I was particularly discouraged because I see firsthand the work that's being done by these staff, and I see them working 12 and 16-hour days. I see them not taking days off, and I see the things that they're accomplishing. We can't communicate everything that's happening, and sometimes we can't communicate it because it's a timing matter and things are being planned, but they're not official yet, or perhaps it's a privacy matter. We're talking about people's lives and people's health, and they are entitled to privacy. And sometimes it's just that staff are working so hard on getting these things done that they may not have time to be communicating constantly what's happening, just because that's not a priority. But I want to take an opportunity to say to council and to say to the public who may be watching that in 35 years of working in social services, I've never seen an effort like I'm seeing now from our staff and from our community, and I'm completely reassured that there isn't a body or a brain or a penny being left on the table in terms of meeting the needs. So I guess thank you.
You know what, Councillor Clarke, that is incredibly significant coming from you, and I think we would all support and echo those comments. I have to tell you that one of the things from my position as regional chair that I find so inspiring is the fact that so many sectors of our community have been animated by a common challenge, and that's been this COVID-19. And the philanthropic community are getting together and they're coordinating, and we're looking at the business sector and especially the angst and the uncertainty that's surrounding small and medium-sized businesses right now. And you're absolutely right. When we announced our regime that we have in place for the most vulnerable in our shelter system, 17 people were part of that. And so that means that there were at least 9 non-government agencies that were helping us solve these challenges. So absolutely agree with you. We can hear the emotion in your voice, and thank you for giving the housing people a shout out. They deserve it. Councillor Jowett.
Well, yeah, I echo that too, Elizabeth. It's really good to hear your heart really vulnerable that is sharing that. And thank you, Chair Redmond. I wanted to ask a couple of questions, but you kind of opened the door, and I'll be really, really quick because it's really horrible to sit for so long, I'm sure. But yeah, the business community has stepped up, and we're literally creating places, physical places, to start up making masks, gowns, and even ventilators. As a prototype that's just going into market now. And I've just been asked to help staff up a facility for the masks that the healthcare workers need. So this is why, and Jane's going to help me with some of this, some of the policies and things. But yeah, the business community has stepped up, and the federal government is working very hard to remove red tape to make some of these things happen. Like, we should be hitting a go button on these retooled plants, like within the week. So that was the one thing. I just wanted to ask one question of Dr. Wang with regard to the presumptive tests. I understand that they're probably likely to be positive, but what I'm not getting clear here is we're kind of behind the curve of the other countries, and our trajectory, I don't think, is going to be a lot less, but are we going to be changing the criteria for how and who will be assessed as the depletion of inventory occurs?
Dr. Wang?
Hello, was that Councillor Jowett?
Yes.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, so right now there are limited supplies for testing, and so we are prioritizing testing for the groups that are considered at greatest risk for complications and serious outcomes, and the workers who provide care for them. Yes, if there, if there's more testing kits that become available, we can look at scaling up potentially testing. However, what I can say to you is that as circulation in our community becomes more widespread, the actual testing of mild cases in the community is no longer going to be the key measure. You could put a lot of effort, a lot of staffing resources into trying to track down, trying to detect and track down every case, and it will not have the same impact to even close to the impact that we would have by implementing social distancing measures effectively. So we're going to have to balance, resourcing in terms of what is going to give us the greatest impact. And so even though I understand a lot of people do want testing, for most people, it does not change the outcome for them. And so we ask that most people that do not have serious illness and can recover on their own at home do so. I think I might have not answered part of your question or one of your earlier questions, Councillor Jowett. Would you mind repeating it for me?
I'm just trying to get my head around, has the presumptive testing opportunities that have been presented helped with the very, we don't have enough test kits, we know that. And because of all the things I'm hearing about other retooling, are we doing anything about more test kits?
Yes. So the province is actively working on that. Public health is not actually involved in the supply chain, but the province is, and they've heard heard about that issue loud and clear. The presumptive is due to the provincial lab system, continuing refining their methods, and because the confirmatory results can take 5 days. That is why here in the region of Waterloo, I have decided we will action the presumptive test because it's important for us to take action immediately. And even if some of these occasionally turn out to be negative in the end, I think it's better to err on the side of caution. And so really the significance of the presumptive test is simply that we are getting right now an early indication of the fact that there's very likely to be a positive result in, say, 5 days. And so what we're doing here in our region is actioning those quickly.
Thank you for that.
Answer your question? Thank you.
Yes, it has. Thank you. And Chair Redmond, can we speak further about the state of emergency and WSIB around these non-essential workers that we're trying to staff up within the next couple of days at some point?
Yeah, offline.
Yeah, offline we can, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Vrbanovic.
Thank you very much, Chair Redmond. And I just want to begin by also really praising staff for the overall work that's been done in a very short period of time, and particularly Dr. Wang and her team, as well as our EMS staff for the incredible work they're doing along with our other first responders at the police and at our local fire departments. And obviously hospitals and everyone else in the healthcare system. I really have one main question, and we're getting a lot of requests from different groups around volunteers and volunteering and so on, and that hasn't been a priority up to this point from a coordination point of view from our end. And I know a lot of it is just happening on its own through the community, and a lot of great things happening. But I'm wondering, we'll get to the point where we need to do that. And I know the pandemic plan contemplates it. Have we given any thought yet in terms of how we might action that? And if not, it's understandable that we haven't yet. How do we see that sort of playing out in the coming days and weeks? And it's probably a question for Mr. Murray, and then just one short follow-up.
Yeah.
Mr. Murray?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I know it's come up a few times, and Councillor Vrbanovic, I think the short answer is I don't think we've fully turned our minds to that yet. I know there's the community support control group. They've been focused on marginalized people, shelters. I just have to look at the plan and see if the whole volunteer management falls within that group. And as you know, the area municipal CAOs are talking regularly. So it's a really good point. Leave it with us. And I agree with you. It's something that we need to kind of ramp up and bring a little bit of kind of structure to, because I think there are a lot of people who want to help. And there's a lot of areas that need help, and we just have to figure out a good, efficient way to connect those two.
Thank you. And my follow-up really was, I wanted to acknowledge the level of collaboration that's been happening between the region and the area municipalities. I know particularly through the CAO meetings, a lot of issues are getting brought up, including with our control group meeting. And I do want to, I know one of the areas that was a main concern for Kitchener was around our vulnerable populations, and we've done wonderful work. There's still more to be done over the last number of days. And lastly, Chair Redmond, I really want to thank you for your leadership through this whole process. You've done a great job in helping steer this from a regional council point of view, and just want to take a moment to publicly acknowledge that.
Well, thank you for your kind words. I echo yours of staff and the community, and I would just say, I think it continues to be an absolute privilege that we get to be part of the solution. There's so many people that don't see a venue of how to help. I think it's why you're identifying quite correctly. There's so many people wanting to volunteer. So it's a privilege to serve in this way, and thank you all colleagues for your leadership.
Yeah.
Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, echoing everything that's being said. I think it's extremely important that the message needs to get out to people. Borrowing on some of what Councillor Strickland was talking about, that people have to understand that their apathy towards this goes directly towards the length of time we have to suffer through this. And I think that's something that's not getting out there. That's one thing. I mean, on the news, I saw in England, the mayors are going out and yelling at people that aren't observing social distancing. And I'm not so sure that I should be doing that. I'm currently in self-isolation here. So I would find it rather difficult to do that. But I think the point has to get across to people that it is very effective, as the doctor has said. So I think it's extremely important that message get out there, that people have to start taking into consideration other than themselves. They have to start thinking of their families, their parents, their grandparents, and nieces and nephews, everybody. So I think that's the important word that has to get out there. And I have to reiterate to the chair that you are the person. Some people should say the man, but I would say you are the person. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Les. I'm not going to go out and yell on the street at people though yet, okay? That's not duties as assigned, is it?
Listen, maybe they would listen to you more than some of the others.
Thank you. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, Chair. The word echoing's been used a lot, and actually we had a lot of echoing except for the last two calls I had. The last two ones, Les and yourself, did not echo anymore. I wonder if some people's volumes are too high and it's causing the echo feedback.
Maybe. This is certainly a new experience for all of us, Sue. Do you have any other comments, or you just wanted to tell people to turn the volume down?
Just that. Maybe try turning down their volumes a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGarry.
You've said. So, thank you. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Great. I just wanted to also thank everyone for their spectacular, cohesive collaboration amongst all parties. This is unprecedented, and I would say that I have never seen this level of cooperation. I also wanted to give a shout out publicly to those individuals that are on our front lines. I was on the front lines myself during SARS in triage at 2 different hospitals during 2003, and I remember the fear and the anxiety of having to go to work every day and potentially bringing home this deadly disease potentially deadly disease to your family at that time. So I really wanted to just let the public know that every one of us that has been spending hours around the clock for weeks on planning through this pandemic and making sure that we can get everything that we need for our first responders, for our healthcare families that are out there on the front lines, that the effort has been spectacular by all. But really, the bottom line is we are just really here to ensure that our frontline workers are safe and healthy as possible. I also wanted to note that there are many businesses and people coming forward to assist. And I'm wondering if we could provide the information of a contact person or website address or email address of businesses that are coming forward to help, so that we can actually have one repository for those that are offering assistance. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take that offline, Councillor McGarry. There's an amazing number of people that are stepping up. I've tried to just be a connector with hospitals and areas that where they were specifically looking at helping, but you're suggesting a phone number that everybody could call whether you want to provide help or ask for help?
Yeah, and if I could, we'll look into that. I actually think, the province launched something recently that's sort of an online connector. People who need help and people who want to offer help. But we'll delve into that a little bit more and push some information out to councillors so that if you get these kinds of offers, there's some place to point people.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Erb.
Thank you. Ditto to all the compliments to the people that are working hard on this. I'm very appreciative of Councillor Clarke's comments of how the people in the social sectors are working together, because I think at the end of the day, the test for us will be how we serve those most vulnerable in our community. And from what I see from staff and hear and read, they're a priority for us, and we're serving them well. And I think it's important that we reassure the public that that is happening.
Thank you, Councillor Erb. And I guess we'll give the last word of this little section to Councillor Clarke. Councillor Clarke?
Thank you. I don't want to hog time. It's just that with the discussion of volunteers, the Volunteer Action Center is part of the Community Supports Control group of the pandemic plan. So I know they have a role. I don't want to try to speak for them to say what that role is, but I know that this is something that they are taking some responsibility for. So I just wanted to make that note.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the update. As you know, colleagues, you'll continue to get bulletins, and we will continue. We have an amazing communications team that is trying to get the information out there, but I think we can all appreciate that it's rapidly moving. Colleagues, I want to deal with some recommendations that came from closed, which is the session we had this morning. And that is moved by Councillor McGarry and seconded by Councillor Nowak. The summary of the recommendations basically is that the first one is, there's two of them. The Region of Municipality approve and enter into settlement agreement with Karen A. Schlurl, the owner, and execute all documentation in relation to a partial expropriation of a property known as 1198 Fisher Hallman Road. And the owner will be paid a sum of $413,716 in compensation and reimbursements of the owner for their reasonable and legal associated costs, and that the regional solicitor has all the necessary authority to execute such documents to carry out the agreement and to settle a reasonable legal and other costs with the owner pursuant to the Expropriation Act. And the second recommendation is that the Regional Municipality of Waterloo endorse the nomination of Kevin Ann Reinhardt for the Senior of the Year Award presented annually by the Ministry of Citizenship, Immigration, and International Trade. I see no speakers. It's been moved and seconded. Could everybody who is in favor hit *9?
Councillor Sean? Councillor Sean?
In favor.
Thank you.
That is carried. Thank you, colleagues. Hang on.
Where are we now?
Where are we?
Item 9, Committee of the Whole.
So I'll now entertain a motion for the Committee of the Whole to rise and Council to resume, and this is moved by Councillor Shantz and seconded by Councillor Vrbanovic. Again, all those in favor, please hit *9.
Councillor Sean? Councillor Sean?
Yep, I'm here, yes.
Councillor Harris? Okay, we got it, thank you.
Okay. That is carried. The committee of the whole will rise and council will resume. A motion to adopt proceedings of the committee of the whole. This has been moved by Councillor Clarke, seconded by Councillor Erb. All those in favor, press star 9.
Councillor Sean?
Yes.
That is carried. Do we need a motion for? Sorry?
You need to ask about any other business.
Is there any other business, colleagues? Seeing none. Motion to enact the bylaws first, second, and third readings. This is moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Harris. Included in this is a bylaw to amend bylaw 00-031 as amended, being the region's bylaw governing the proceedings of council and committees. B is a bylaw to establish tax ratios for the regional purposes and area municipal purposes for the year 2020. C is a bylaw to establish and levy rates of taxation for regional purposes for the year. And D is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of March 24th, 2020. All those in favor, please press star 9.
Councillor Sean?
Yes.
Thank you.
That is carried. A motion to adjourn moved by Councillor Kiefer, seconded by Councillor Nowak. Star 9.
Councillor Sean?
Yes.
Councillor Erb?
Thank you, colleagues. Amazingly enough, that one was carried unanimously. Thank you all for participating in this experiment, for your attention and your time, your thoughtful questions, and what you do all day, every day. I know you've all got personal lives. A lot of you have professional lives, and you're balancing that with helping lead this community in a very positive way forward. So thank you for all you do, and this meeting is adjourned.